A family of 3 was happily having breakfast, but the boy's father suddenly met with a tragedy. Then, the boy's mother unexpectedly grabbed a knife and ran towards herself. In order to save his life, the boy heartlessly kicked his mother down the stairs. What exactly happened between them? The young boy's name is Peter. Peter had a happy and content family, but he was well aware that he was like a spider trapped in a glass jar, because every night when he went to sleep, he would be awakened by knocking sounds coming from the walls. Peter called out in fear to his mother, and his mother Mary listened on the wall for a long time, but she didn't notice any movement. However, on the following night, strange noises came from the walls again, as if something wanted to crawl out from within. Until that night, Peter heard a voice calling his name. He immediately shouted loudly for his father Denny, but Denny still didn't hear anything unusual. He speculated that it might be the sound of mice at night. The next day, he took out a large bag of rat poison. He intended to eliminate all the rats. Curiously, Peter took a sniff. The rat poison emitted a strong cinnamon fragrance. Father and son sprinkled the rat poison in every corner of the room. That night, not only did the knocking sounds not disappear, but even the voice of a girl came from the wall. The girl claimed to be Peter's sister, who had been confined in the wall due to a congenital disability. At first, Peter didn't believe it, but after he went to school, he quickly forgot about it. Later, a rude bully crushed a pumpkin made by Peter, which made him very sad. That night, the girl in the wall told Peter that he needed to fight back in such situations. As a result, the next day after school, Peter pushed the bully down the stairs. Peter's parents were surprised, as the normally timid Peter had made such a crazy move. When Peter mentioned that it was the voice from the wall that told him to do so, Denny became even more agitated. He decided to teach Peter an unforgettable lesson. 8-year-old Peter was locked in a dark basement. The frightened young boy fell asleep like that. When he woke up, he unexpectedly found an iron chain beside him. The female teacher at the school accidentally saw the dark style drawings made by Peter, and she wanted to visit Peter's home, but Mary didn't seem welcoming to the female teacher. In the end, it was Peter's father who appeared, and he invited the teacher into the room. But when the teacher saw the hammer in his hand and the bleeding wound, she became extremely concerned. The teacher couldn't help but request to see Peter. Mary suddenly became agitated and cursed that the teacher was not welcome here. In the basement, Peter heard the commotion and desperately banged on the wall to get the teacher's attention. The teacher heard the intense noise and became even more cautious. She was about to explore the surroundings, but Denny falsely claimed that it was the sound of a washing machine drum. The teacher looked at Denny's unfriendly gaze and ultimately chose to leave. That night, Mary brought a pumpkin cake to the basement, indicating that Peter's punishment was over. Denny asked Peter if he had realized his mistake, and Peter promised that he would never lie again. Mary gestured for him to continue. Peter thought for a moment and then promised that he would never have nightmares again. The couple was very satisfied with his answer. They again smiled kindly. However, Peter felt a chilling sensation. At night, the young boy slowly approached the wall and tapped on it with his hand. The hoarse voice appeared once again. She signaled Peter to tear off the wallpaper. There was actually a hole here. Curiously, Peter looked inside and saw a bright eye. The young boy was frightened and kept retreating. The girl in the wall continued to brainwash him. Our parents are actually murderers. She hoped that Peter could save her by moving the giant clock blocking the exit. In order to gain Peter's trust, the girl also told him that there was a corpse buried in the pumpkin patch outside. That night, Peter was awakened by hurried footsteps. He looked up and saw that the door was opened on its own. Denny was standing in the corner, blinking incessantly. Peter was scared and called out for Mary repeatedly, but Mary, instead, smirked and rushed towards Peter. Fortunately, it was just a dream. However, he quickly remembered his sister's warning, so Peter took a shovel and started searching through the pumpkin patch. Before long, he discovered a skull in the soil. Just then, Mary walked out with a gloomy expression. Peter quickly lied, saying that he was there to pick pumpkins. While Mary was busy handling the pumpkins in the kitchen, he dialed his teacher's number. He pleaded for her to come and rescue him, but just as Peter was about to hang up the phone, he saw Mary standing behind him. Mary casually found an excuse to end the call. Then she took Peter back to his room. Mary warned Peter not to have wild thoughts. When Mary noticed the hole in the wall behind Peter, she became enraged. She shouted angrily at Peter, "Wait until your father comes back to deal with you," and then closed the door. Then the voice in the wall urged Peter to act quickly. "Our parents are going to harm us soon." Peter quietly left the room and happened to see his parents arguing downstairs. Peter thought they must be discussing how to deal with him. He was scared and ran back to his room, lying on the bed pretending to sleep. He made a judgment in his mind. The next day was Halloween. The family sat together calmly eating dinner. Denny remarked that the porridge tonight was very special. Mary nodded in agreement. She said it smelled like there was a hint of cinnamon. Denny suddenly remembered that Peter had mentioned that rat poison had a cinnamon scent. He looked again and noticed that the porridge in Peter's bowl hadn't decreased at all. Denny instantly realized Peter had mixed rat poison in the porridge. He asked his wife to call an ambulance immediately, but the next moment, Denny clutched his stomach and screamed in pain. He vomited a large amount of black liquid from his mouth. Before long, he collapsed to the ground, no longer breathing. Seeing this, Mary immediately grabbed a fruit knife and rushed towards Peter. Unfortunately, she didn't run far before the poison took effect. In a panic, Peter kicked Mary down the stairs. The dagger pierced her in the chest. Mary gradually lost her breath. The young boy didn't forget to take the key to the girl's confinement from her. Before dying, Mary warned Peter not to open the door under any circumstances. Peter ignored her warning. He moved the large pendulum clock at the end of the hallway. Indeed, behind the pendulum clock, there was a hidden door. As soon as Peter inserted the key, the door automatically swung open. A chilling soft laughter filled the entire room. Terrified, Peter fled back to his bedroom and locked the door. It was at this moment that he realized the creature he had released was not his sister, but a terrifying monster. At that moment, a group of masked thugs arrived at Peter's doorstep. One of them was the school bully whom Peter had pushed down the stairs. It turned out that he had come with his accomplices seeking revenge. They searched all the rooms but couldn't find Peter hiding under the bed. They started smashing and destroying things in the room. After someone accidentally discovered the bloodstains on the ground, the horrifying slaughter finally began. The person wearing a pig mask suddenly heard the sound of piano keys, and as he approached to investigate, he found a clump of grey-white hair on top. The person with the pig mask hesitated for a moment, and then a great force dragged him under the piano frame. Meanwhile, the people downstairs looked up, and unexpectedly, another person was also grabbed by a powerful force, and he was quickly dragged into the corridor, disappearing without a sound. The school bully lying on the ground was scared and wanted to get away from the corridor, but at that moment, the monster appeared behind him, and the person wearing a rabbit head mask quickly shouted the name of his companion. The next moment, a dark figure pounced on him, knocking him to the ground. Peter saw the full appearance of the monster, his sister, who was contorting her limbs, resembling a spider. She came over Peter and said that when she was born, her parents locked her in the basement because of her ugly appearance, and they made her spend all her time with spiders and rats. But Peter received love and affection, so she wanted to seek revenge against Peter. After the girl finished speaking, she locked Peter inside that wall. Meanwhile, the teacher returned to Peter's house to confirm the truth, and upon seeing the messy hall, she realized that something was wrong. A claw scratched her leg, and the teacher quickly discovered a crawling monster on the ground. She was afraid and wanted to escape, but the front door was already locked. At that moment, she heard Peter shouting from upstairs to run quickly. With no other choice, the desperate teacher climbed up the stairs. Finally, at the opening in the wall, she saw Peter's outstretched arm. The female teacher, upon hearing the noise from the corridor, first blocked the door to prevent the monster from coming in. Then she used an iron rod to smash a big hole in the wall and rescued Peter. The two of them quickly retrieved the keys and desperately ran downstairs. When the teacher opened the front door, Peter was directly dragged back by the monster. When he woke up again, he found himself trapped in a cage in the basement. The monster's sister poked her head out and said she had been here for many years. It wasn't until later when she pretended to be dead that her parents sealed her body inside the corridor wall. At this moment, the teacher's shout sounded outside the cage. It turned out the teacher had come back to rescue Peter. Unfortunately, she was quickly knocked down by the monster. Just then, Peter inside the dungeon grabbed the monster's hair to prevent her from killing the teacher. Later, Peter surprisingly climbed out of the dungeon using the hair. Just when they were in a stalemate, the teacher directly struck the monster with an iron rod, knocking it into the dungeon. Peter quickly closed the iron door. They finally locked the monster inside forever. The sound of the monster echoed from the dungeon again. The female monster said that even though the iron door sealed her body, it couldn't contain her resentment. Peter would now live in fear and nightmares forever. This movie is called Spiderweb Boy. The movie creates a clever atmosphere of horror. The audience becomes scared along with the male protagonist. Unconsciously, we start to be wary of every other character. Later, the boy's actions of killing his parents became more natural. The psychology of the parents is actually quite twisted. They ignored their ugly eldest daughter and even locked her body in the wall. On one hand, they are not environmentally friendly. On the other hand, they become a huge shadow in their child's mind. The spider girl originally had a deformed body, but she developed her skills by imitating the posture of a spider in the confined space. This proves that girls are strong enough. The second half of the film fully showcases her suppressed, twisted, and cruel psyche. The movie extensively uses massive projections. The unbalanced composition creates a sufficient sense of oppression. The first half of the film is extremely oppressive, which perfectly corresponds to the thrilling climax in the second half. Scenes of the monster harming people make the heart race. However, the film also has some flaws. Some scenes are too dark. The ending could be further refined. Lionsgate Films was established in 1997. They have a unique style when it comes to suspense and horror film genres. Interested friends, please remember to like. Thank you, everyone.